Oh, how bad the algae and red tide situation was earlier this year. We've seen the devastating impacts on local businesses, even marine life. And although the newly released red tide report shows conditions have improved, we're not completely in the clear. 4 in Your Corner's Frank Sapola is live here in studio after researching some solutions to our toxic water problems. Frank?
And Jane, we have all seen the video this year of dead fish and fouled beaches. But this report, which we worked on for several weeks, is not about what has happened. It's about how to fix it. These acres and acres of thirsty sugarcane drink from the same watering hole that fouls our beaches, the same water source that also makes Florida an agricultural powerhouse. Lake Okeechobee is big. It's very big. In fact, you can fit 18 Disney Worlds inside of it. It's also the bullseye in the battle between the state's giant agriculture and tourism industries. How it's managed makes a big difference when it comes to our coastlines.
There's no one quick solution.
The nearly 90-year-old Herbert Hoover Dike is the plug that keeps Lake Okeechobee in place. We walked along the top of it with Peter Gerard. He's with the group Bull Sugar, and he thinks he knows why the smaller sugarcane and agriculture industries keep coming out on top.
No one gives more money to political candidates than the sugarcane industry. If you want to run for office in this state, it is almost impossible to do it without their support.
On a recent trip to the center of the lake, we see no green-blue algae, a far cry from midsummer when 90% of the lake was covered in it. The lake is fishing guide Leo Duran's child. He's on it almost every day, and like a doting parent, he can gauge its mood.
The lake's in pretty darn good shape right now. I mean, we're catching tons of fish. They're healthy fish.
Water in Florida naturally flows south from the Kissimmee River Valley into the lake, and then in a perfect world continues south, brush clean by the Everglades before heading out to sea. But the dike stops that journey so farmland south of the lake can stay dry for growing. When heavy summer rains flood sugarcane and other farmland, water is frequently sent back north into the lake using pumps located on the lake's southern rim, seen here. With that water comes fertilizer, pesticides, and other toxins used for growing.
It's sort of like adding fertilizer to your flower pot.
Toxicologist Bill Sawyer says nutrients for growing and toxins to kill bugs and fungus end up in our coastal waters and eventually in us.
Which is accumulating in the shellfish. It's creating an aerosol into the air from the wave action, which we inhale. It's highly neurotoxic and can even be fatal.
He's lost over $150,000 in the last 4 days.
On Sanibel Island, the co-founder of Captains for Clean Water says the mess has cost the Gulf and Atlantic recreational fishing industry hundreds of thousands of dollars.
We could have bad water this year and lose visitors, and our water could be nice for the next 5 years, but we still aren't getting them back because they had that one bad experience.
So what solutions do we have to work with? Sadly, not one solution can satisfy all competing interests. In short, something or someone will have to give for the rest of us to benefit. First suggestion, drill wells north of the lake to drive excess water headed south from Orlando into the ground, although early tests show that could stir up dangerous arsenic and pollute the water table. The second idea is already underway. Build small reservoirs south of the lake to store the overflow, although that only works if the water is cleaned before it's pumped back into the lake and sent our way. Third is to lower the level of the lake before the rainy winter season. Although if it doesn't rain, the lake level could get too low, endangering the ecosystem. And finally, have the state buy up thousands of acres of land from growers and build a meandering river south of the lake that would send water through a natural environment, cleaning it as it goes. That suggestion was first made 30 years ago and was all but a done deal in 2008. But then the Great Recession hit, and it was put on hold. This is all made more complicated because the sugarcane industry is a powerful force in Florida politics. One of the major producers of sugarcane, Florida Crystals Corporation, donated almost $600,000 to candidates in this election cycle alone. Another big producer is U.S. Sugar. It's based in Clewiston. It is the biggest grower of sugarcane in the country. In the 2016 election cycle, it donated more than $1 million to political candidates. I requested an interview with CEO Robert Bucher several times to discuss Sugar's influence, but was told he was unavailable. With open access to his home from the street, we went looking for him. First using the call box, and then driving in. A knock on his door went unanswered. Bucher, however, has written an op-ed piece. In it, he says, Lake Okeechobee discharges are about 30% of the water that flowed down the Caloosahatchee this year. Water from our sugarcane south of the lake is only 1%. The rest is local runoff from lands along the river.
I mean, the Everglades is on life support. It doesn't get enough water.
Ray Judah is an environmental scientist. He says Bucher's claims are just not true. This slide from the South Florida Water Management District shows lake discharges more like 40%, not 30%. And nutrient-rich, toxic-laden water, back-pumped from farmland and used to grow sugarcane, easily tops Bucher's claim of 1%. So what or who wins? Well, that's where the money comes back in. Nowadays, the political conversation is all too often driven by money. Every year, tourism in Florida generates more than 10 times what the state's sugarcane industry makes. Judah says the tourism industry must pool its resources, state its case, and influence those in power.
They need to get educated in terms of who's running for office, what their position is with regards to restoring our rivers and estuaries. Not whether a person is a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent, but what is their position on restoring our rivers and estuaries, and what are they going to do about it?
Now, just to be fair, Disney, which is the main tourist attraction in the state, does contribute money to political campaigns, but it's the smaller tourism and hospitality industries on the coast that need to join the conversation. Also, to underscore how much of a problem this is, Collier County just this week reported the number of October visitors dropped for the first time ever. It blames that, in part, on our continuing red tide problems. Jane?